Let's speak to Dr. Alan Mendoza, founder and executive director of the Henry Jackson Society, which is a foreign policy think tank. Give us everything that we need to know about Wuhan, but we're afraid to ask then, Dr. Alan. Evening.
Well, where do you want to begin? I mean, there is, of course, a profound irony. This was, of course, the outbreak of coronavirus initially in Wuhan. Whether from animal market or laboratory leak, we know not, since they haven't, of course, cooperated with the information. But China has claimed to be COVID-free for a long time. But the Delta variant is wreaking its sort of way around China. Of course, there's been an outbreak in Nanjing and airport workers. That appears to have spread to other parts of the country. And of course, now Wuhan's been affected, and it is indeed extraordinary. 11 million people will be tested, according to the Chinese. They've been panic buying on the shops today as they prepare for what will doubtless be another lockdown. There are, by the way, other areas in China that have been under lockdown quite severely because China does have a zero COVID policy. So it's obviously fraught over there right now. And Delta, we know how quickly it spreads. It's now reached the sort of original source.
What have the authorities said about how they account for the spread of the virus? I understand some 15 provinces, as you were saying, across the country have been affected, not just Wuhan.
Well, I think, you see, again, it comes down to an airport transfer. So the outbreak appears to have stemmed from migrant workers at Nanjing Airport. Now, of course, Nanjing being a major city, people travel from Nanjing all over China. That explains why, of course, it spread so quickly. The reality is, though, as every country has discovered, once you have the Delta variant within, it doesn't take long, given its extraordinary efficiency at transmission, for it to spread quite rapidly. And I think China is just the latest example of this.
Do you think once they've tested the 11 million residents of Wuhan that they will make public the results?
Well, you always have to take China's data with a pinch of salt. We know that GDP figures, COVID stats, whatever it is they're going to be massaged, obviously, by the authorities. They may well publish something. Whether it's the truth is another matter entirely, because there's no independent way of verifying what you discover. I think you'll probably learn more by the actions they take. For example, if there is a mass lockdown, you all know the situation's bad.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, I suppose we'll have to wait and see really on that, won't we? The Nanjing, I'm reading, got 9.2 million. They've all been tested 3 times. I mean, the testing program seems huge there.
Well, you can do it if you're an authoritarian, communist dictatorship, basically. You compel people to do as they're told. You then, kind of make sure that they are in the right place at the right time. You roll out your facilities and you test them, and you test them again, in that way. It's much more difficult, obviously, in a liberal democratic society with freedom of choice and freedom of will to do the same thing.
What are they? When you said they've got this zero tolerance attitude towards cases, what does that mean for things like lockdowns?
Lockdowns are imposed willy-nilly. I mean, basically, a couple of cases occur, mass lockdown occurs in areas or even whole cities. So that, you've seen this all the way through. The minute something emerges, they take quite a strict view of it. It's somewhat similar to what Australia, for example, has done, which will be more familiar, I think, to listeners. You've seen in various places, Australia has 10 cases. A whole area of a city gets locked down, or of the city itself. What they're trying to do, of course, is keep, at least officially, COVID cases down below a certain threshold, because once you reach a certain threshold, it's very difficult to put the genie back in the bottle. For example, in the UK, to get to zero COVID now would be a gargantuan task because so much of it is around. Now, we might be able to do it with herd immunity, but that's a very different, kind of model to what the Chinese are employing right now.
Is there anything we can extrapolate from this? I mean, is there any kind of global pattern? Just because it originated in Wuhan, does this mean that can we extrapolate it's going to then have global ramifications or not?
Well, no, I mean, it was original COVID, of course, emanated from Wuhan. That then, became other variants once it crossed with other issues. So it's come back as a different variant now. You've got Delta. Just as we know here, we've had different variants emerge and become dominant. The reality here is that it's come back to its source in the sense of the original outbreak, but it's a different variant to what was there. What it shows you, though, is how Delta has really gone around the world in very short order, from its start in India, and now has been over to Europe, it's been to America, it's now, paying a visit to China.
And what percentage of the Chinese population are double jabbed? Do we know?
That I don't know off the top of my head, but it obviously won't be as high as here, given the sheer population number. That said, they have, of course, rolled out an aggressive vaccination program. The question, of course, is how good their vaccine is. They've got several different vaccines. Some have been approved generally, some have not. So the questions, therefore, are, how does that do against Delta, for example? As we know, certain vaccines do better against certain variants than others.
Thank you very much for cluing us up. Really appreciate your expertise. Dr. Alan Mendoza, founder and executive director of the Henry Jackson Society, which is a foreign policy think tank, talking to you